We're now standing in Area G in Ir David. This is an area that has been dug up for basically 100 years. People have been researching here, and the discussions over this place keep on going. Lahala, lahala. The wall behind me, 18 meters tall, stepped structure. We've mentioned it before when we spoke about what Dr. Mazar called the palace of King David. Let's look at the picture. The two pictures here. The two pictures here. You can see here on this picture here. I'll come closer. This is the stepped structure and the palace higher up. This is a picture from the Ir David collection. And over here we have one more time to put it together. The ancient picture of Dr. Lynn Rittmeyer, who made this picture long before anything was dug on top. So over there was the palace of King David on top there. But we want to talk about the slope here. You see there's stuff built into the slopes. There's cuts in the slope. There are cubicles in the slope. Because after Shlomo HaMelech became king, he built the palace much higher up, close to the Temple Mount. And this area over here, where we were earlier and where you see the flowers and the big lamps there, became just a royal estate and wasn't really the main place of action anymore. But in this area here, we have discoveries from right before Churban Bais Rishon, right from before the destruction of Jerusalem of the First Temple era. So if you follow me here to the left here, we have here a chamber, and we have nicknamed it, the archaeologists nicknamed it as the post office. This chamber down here, right, you can see there's a little staircase leading up here to a second floor that is not existent anymore. If you look carefully inside, you can see even if there's a pillar standing there, which was part of, supporting a chamber in the second floor. Inside this building here, the archaeologists found, look what I got here, they found here 51 little dinghies like this, 51 little seals, right? Now this is actually much too big. It's too blown up. Focus on my shirt now and look at this button here. This is about the size of the seals that we're talking about. They're tiny. They're tiny, but they tell us so much. They found 51 seals with 84 names of 43 different people, right? My name is Daniel Ben Yonah, right? I'm one person with two names, right? My name and my father's name. What are some of the names that they found there? So, one of the names they found there is Gemariyahu ben Shaphan. We have Gemariyahu ben Shaphan here on a poster. Look at him here. Here's his seal. You see him right here. Gemariyahu ben Shaphan. Right? It's in the ancient Ktav Ivri that was used at the time of the First Temple era. And what is Gemariyahu Shaphan? What does he tell us? Right? So Gemariyahu ben Shaphan, he's mentioned here in the book of Jeremiah. Got him right here. Jeremiah, Yirmiyahu, right? Chapter 36, Lamed Vav. And it was in the 4th year of King Yoakim, the son of Yoshiao, king over Judah. And the word of Hashem came to Jeremiah, telling him, Kach lecha Megillat Sefer, take for you a scroll, ve'katafta aleh et kol hadvarim asher dibarti elecha, and write on it everything that I will tell you, that I told you. Al Yisrael, on the people of Israel. Al Yehudah, on the nation of Yehudah. Al kol hagoyim, about all the nations. Yom dibarti elecha, from the time that I spoken to you. Mimei Yoshiao ad hayom hazeh, over a long period of time. And now listen to these words. Ulai, perhaps. Yishmu Beit Yehudah, the house of Judah will hear, et kol hara, all the evil, asher anochi choshev lasot lahem, that I'm planning to do to them. Leman, in order for them, Yashuvu ish midarko hara, that everybody should return from their evil ways. Vesalachti leavonam velechatatam, and I will forgive them. This is at the time of King Yoyakim. This is basically just a few years before the destruction of Yerushalayim, in 586, before the Common Era. And Hashem will still forgive us. Vayikra Yirmiyahu et Baruch ben Neriah, and Yirmiyahu called Baruch ben Neriah. There's arguments whether his stamp was found originally also, whether it's a real stamp, whether it's a forgery. So we're not going to speak about him more. And eventually, Baruch ben Neriah takes the Megillah. Some people say it's just Megillat Eicha. Other people, other Mefarshim say it's all of Sefer Yirmiyahu. And where does he read it? Vayikra Baruch Basefer et Divrei Yirmiyahu. This is Pasuk Yud. And Baruch ben Neriah reads this scroll, the words of Yirmiyahu, Beit Hashem, in the Beis HaMikdash, Belishkat, in the chamber of who? Gemariyahu ben Shaphan. Gemariyahu ben Shaphan. We never paid attention too much. We know Gemariyahu ben Shaphan was a person. He had some sort of a job. Here he popped out of the ground. Belishkat Gemariyahu ben Shaphan. Right? Bechatzar Elyon, in the upper courtyard. Petach Shar Beit Hashem. Right? Be'oznei kolam. Everybody was listening. And how was the king taking to this? Yoyakim eventually heard that there's something doing. And he wanted to hear this prophecy. The doomsday prophecy of Jeremiah. And what did he do with it? It was on a wintry day. It was cold. And he was sitting in his palace. And the fireplace was burning in front of him. And after his royal reader, scribe, read to him a few portions of the book, he took the knife that the Sofrim used to make lines on the parchment, and he tore it up into pieces, and he threw it into the fireplace to burn it in the fireplace. That's how Yoyakim, the king of Judah, dealt with Jeremiah's prophecies. So these names were found here. We're going to go now and move higher up to where we came from, the dig of Dr. Mazar. Up there in the corner, she found another 2 stamps. I'll bring them to you. These are also stamps, and you can see here on the poster how these stamps were used, right? You would take a letter which was made either from parchment or from papyrus, from the ancient paper. You'd write on it, then you'd roll it up with some sort of string, and then you put a piece of clay on it and seal it, stamp it, so that people knew this is a sealed, encrypted type of letter. Nobody's seen it before, right? So she found there 2 stamps. One of them, Yoyachal ben Shlemaya, and the other one, Gedalia ben Pashchur. Now we didn't pay attention to these characters before. We just learned the verses, but now we know that they're real people. Let's see what we have about Yoachal ben Shlemaya. This is a few chapters later, right? Actually, just 1 chapter later, right? Yoyachim has already been exiled by the Babylonians as an undeserving vassal. He's been blinded, right? And now his younger brother Tzidkiyahu rules instead of him, right? Nebuchadnezzar gave him the job, client king, but he didn't listen either to the words of Hashem. The pasuk tells us, "Velo shama hu ve'avadav ve'am haaretz el divrei Hashem asher diber v'yad Yirmiyahu navi." They didn't listen, not him and not the nation, to what Jeremiah said. But Tzidkiyahu, his name he already says, Tzidkiyahu, he was a shtikla tzaddik. He had a pintel yid left in him. Vayishlach HaMelech Tzidkiyahu et Yoyachal ben Shlemaya. He sent Yoachal ben Shlemaya, ואת צפניה ben Maasaya, HaKohen, El Yirmiyahu HaNavi, to Jeremiah the prophet, Le'emor, and listen, this king still had something in him. What did he tell him? Hitpalelna ba'ad Hashem Elokeinu. You daven to Hashem. We can't daven anymore. We are so corrupted. We're so much into ourselves. But you are still a holy man. Maybe you daven to Hashem. So again, nobody paid attention ever. Who is this messenger? And here we found a testimony, his stamp, Yoachal ben Shlemaya, right? Right here in the middle, his stamp. But there's another person that is mentioned also up there. Gedaliah ben Pashchur. This is a couple verses further down in chapter 38. Says there, and Shvataya, the son of Matan, and Gedaliah, the son of Pashchur, and Yochal ben Shlemaya, and Pashchur, the son of Malchiah. I guess that was the father of Gedaliah. They heard the words of Jeremiah that had spoken to all the people. And what was Jeremiah saying that Gedaliah ben Pashchur had heard? What did he say here? Ko amar Hashem. Thus speaks Hashem. He that remains in this city shall die by the sword, by the famine, and by pestilence. But he who goes over to the Kasdim shall live. The one who goes over to the Babylonians shall live. Jeremiah was blamed to be a defeatist. But Hashem spoke to him. Hashem was interested that the Jewish people shall live. And that the city maybe even shall survive. But nobody was interested to listen. What does it say to the Gedaliah ben Pashchur? Famine. Famine and pestilence. So follow me, and I'll show you a little bit about that. As we're going now, and we're turning our attention to this house here. You see, there is a little platform here. You try to ignore the plastic on the bottom that's got to do with a sound and light show that they have here at night, which is a lot of fun. You can see there's two pillars. I have a picture of the house here. I have a picture of the house here. You can see the picture. You can see there's here a staircase on the side. Perhaps the camera can pick a few stairs up there on the side. This is how we have to imagine the house. This house is called Beit Achiel. We before had the post office. Here we have the house of Achiel. Why is it called the house of Achiel? Because they found a little stamp there with the name Achiel on it. Achiel, we don't know him from our sources, but we know that he was a rich guy. How do we know he was a rich guy? Well, you see, when you enter the Ir David National Park, forgive me for the quality of this picture, but it is what it is. They have these beams. They have these beams that they're showing there behind the cashiers. They found these beams inside that house. The beams had still inlays of mother of pearl. Achiel must have been a wealthy guy if he had mother of pearl in his beams, right? He had fancy furnishings. But we know more that he was a wealthy guy. You see, there's a Gemara in Shabbos 25. The Gemara in Shabbos 25 tells us, Ezu Ashir, who is a rich man? And there's different opinions there. Different opinions. Shabbos 25, Amud Beis. And Rabbi Yossi says, who is a rich man? Mi sheyesh lo beit hakiseh samuch l'shulchano. The one who has his lavatory near his dining room. And, I have to admit, we tour guides, we're only humans. And we're only human. When I drew this picture, I didn't really pay too much attention. That the most important part of the picture, I didn't really color in until much later. And that's the area here. You see where the black arrow is pointing to? It's the back of the house with a door into it, right? This is how the graphic artist imagines it. And what was inside there? Look here. Right here it is. Right here it is. a stone. And I like to say, depending on the different cultures that we deal with, in Europe it's called Jacob de la Font. In America it's called American Standard. In Germany they call it Geberit. It's a toilet seat. Rabbi Sai, people had plumbing in Jerusalem before Churban Bayis Rishon. This was a fancy city. This man was a rich man. He had a bathroom. And if you're telling me that he was the only one, well, a little bit higher up, there is, in less good state, there's another toilet seat like that. We found toilet seats in all kinds of places on archaeological sites. These people weren't cavemen. They lived a good life. Well, you want to know what the good life meant? They checked out this toilet seat. They checked out the cesspool underneath it. The ancient, dried out remains of excrement. They found there remains of tapeworm, remains of meat. Now, when people eat meat, we usually like to eat our meat. Some people well done, some people rare. That meat was raw. It meant that people brought in their livestock before the siege of Nebuchadnezzar, of the Babylonians. And that's what they ate. Why didn't they grill it? Because the wood that they had, they needed for battlements, to defend the walls, to strengthen the walls, to build arrowheads, to build shafts for spears. They couldn't spend the wood on barbecue. But when they went a little bit higher up in the layers of the excrement remains, they just found plant life. And the simplest plant life they found wasn't even herbs, it was just grass, and clearly showed the signs of diarrhea. Isn't that what Gedalia ben Pashur heard from Yirmiyahu? That the city is going to die from famine and pestilence. Everything here was burnt. The city was destroyed by fire. A couple years ago, there was an amazing exhibit in the Bible Lands Museum in Jerusalem. And it caught my eye there, a jug. And if you look at the jug, you can clearly tell there's something weird about this jug. It's like somebody punched the jug in the belly. Not just once, maybe even twice. And there was a sign next to it which explains that jugs like this were fired at a temperature of 600 to 800 degrees Celsius. And that this jug was found somewhere in area G in Ir David. And what the archaeologists suggest is that this jug actually melted in the heat of the fire of Yerushalayim when it burned. You wonder, well, where did they still have, combustible material? Well, the houses were built still, not just of stone, but there was also beams in there. And that stuff burned. And when it got hot enough, the stones would even bust. This thing, I guess, before it busted, got wobbly and then it busted. Something like that. It teaches us how horrible, how difficult the Churban was. When we sit and bemoan the destruction of Yerushalayim, we're thinking of the Beis HaMikdash. We somehow lose sight of what that really meant for the people, that the city got burned, that everything got destroyed, burnt up. The temperature here must have been so hot, over 800 degrees Celsius, that everything got incinerated and destroyed. Right? How did the city, this great city that was once a metropolis, get destroyed? And the words of Yirmiyahu, Yochal ben Shlemaya, Gedalia ben Pashur, they all came true here. We see how Tanach here comes alive in this scene of destruction as somewhat of a Zecher L'Churban, that we should overcome it and remember the pasuk, Ulai Yishmu Beit Yehuda. Maybe the Jews are going to listen. V'yashuvu midarkam hara'ah, and they will do tshuva. V'salachti la'avonam, and I will forgive them. If that was true then, al achas kama v'kama ben beno shel kal v'chomer, it is true today that we are called upon to have introspection, to do tshuva, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will listen. She bone beis hamikdash b'mheira v'ameinu. Amen.